This guy, man. This dude. Look at these dudes. This guy made some claims tonight that I've been looking into. Not seeing a whole hell of a lot of validation yet. So I went to his Wikipedia page, makes some claims about some artists that he's worked with who have supposedly said good things about him. The citation for the claim that Notorious B.I.G. spoke of this man and said, and I thought I was the illest, links to an article from 2009 in the Village Voice. Now let's go to Google here really quick. Notorious B.I.G. Oh, he died in 1997, so you're telling me that this citation from an article in 2009 contains a direct quote on tape attributed to Notorious B.I.G.? Or did this asshole's Wikipedia page link to a 2009 Village Voice article in which said bitch boy rapper claims that this was said about him? R.A. the Rugged Man Abides by Ben Westhoff, November 10th, 2009. As the story goes, R.A. the Rugged Man really wanted to get dropped from Jive Records. An employee of the label had sued him for sexual harassment. For one thing, R.A. says they paid her off out of his budget. Jive had no comment. So he decided to take matters into his own hands. At a 1994 showcase for such label mates as Keith Murray and Fu Schnickens, R.A. took to the stage and performed songs called Every Record Label Sucks Dick and Cunt Renaissance. As MTV's cameras rolled, he brought out a duct-taped, handcuffed streetwalker he just picked up outside to carouse with him on stage, whereupon attendees became visibly unsettled. Things got even more out of control when R.A.'s pals began taunting Murray's crew and throwing speakers at the crowd, eventually inciting a mini riot. Quote, I figured, let me do whatever the fuck I want and go nuts, unquote, R.A. tells me directly over a turkey club and cheese fries at a diner near his Harlem apartment. Gotta get that black street cred, right? But it backfired on me because they held a grudge. Quote unquote. Instead of dropping him, Jive wouldn't let him out of his contract for years, he says, despite other labels' interest. Like this one, most of the Long Island-bred rapper's stories feature comedy, tragedy, debauchery, obscenity, and self-sabotage. And hookers. They often have hookers. Quote, I used to have a little stable of women back in the day, unquote, he says. Quote, say I wanted to negotiate beat prices with a known producer. I'd be like, homegirl, go take homeboy in the back room, have sex with him and a couple of his friends. All of a sudden it's like, what beats do you need, R.A.? Unquote. Woke AF? Woke AF. After the Jive incident, he says he was blackballed from venues across the country. Are you sure that it didn't have to do with the sexual harassment? Eventually dealless, showless, and homeless, his self-esteem was in the dumps. But he started to feel better around the time he realized everyone else was crazy and he was perfectly sane. Now I get that. I get the feeling, right? I've been told that I'm crazy by a lot of people, and I know that I'm not. Difference between me and the guy I'm reading about is I go by facts. And if the facts do not agree with my emotions, I chill the fuck out and come to grips with the facts. As an aside, something that I've seen recently was somebody making a comment on a life coach / narcissistic abuse recovery channel's comments, saying something about the way the world has been recently, it's really interesting to be a person who has been through problems with addiction, as I have, problems with mental illness, as I have, problems with grief, loss, and abusive relationships, as I have. To then look at the world as it's going down right now and be like, maybe I'm going to be okay because these people aren't. Like, I get that, right? I get that. And so, thanks to his freight train delivery, compellingly. Now, I'm going to pause this for a moment and wonder, did he, in the process of obtaining this interview with the Village Voice, say, homegirl, go take homeboy in the back room, have sex with him and a couple of his friends, and all of a sudden it's like, how would you like me to write the article about you, R.A.? And so, thanks to his freight train delivery, compellingly profane rhymes, and borderline sociopathic refusal to compromise, well, we definitely saw that on Timcast. He got fucking schooled. He flat out stepped in shit as far as racism goes when it came to Tim. And it took him an hour to an hour and a half of dialogue to even come close to backpedaling on anything that he'd said that he knew was wrong. And he admitted to being wrong to like 2 things. It was like a 3-hour show of him being wrong, though. And so, thanks to his freight train delivery, compellingly profane rhymes, and borderline sociopathic refusal to compromise, R.A. is nowadays a fairly well-known rap veteran. Who the fuck is R.A. the Rugged Man? I've never heard of this guy before, literally today. I'm not saying I'm an expert or an authority, but I've heard of the people he claims have heard of him, and I've never heard any of them mention him. I've been connected to a lot of underground music stuff, catch wind of stuff that nobody else has ever heard of. Who the fuck is R.A.? Because I've never heard of him before today. Anyway. He rhymes, writes books, produces films, and pals around with members of the Wu-Tang Clan and Mobb Deep. Maybe because he grew up in the neighborhood with them. Maybe because he was that fucking bitch boy wannabe rich kid suburbanite that wanted to get down with the fucking brothers, and they had something that he tried to copy. That's the only thing I can think. All of this despite having put out only one proper studio album. Well, it seems like there was a couple of albums that he had together that they just wouldn't put out, and I can dig a label not wanting to work with an artist or if their stuff's too profane or something. Yeah, I get that. Stories about R.A. Thorburn often sound apocryphal, like the one about how he took a dump on a mixing board. But there are certain things you can be sure of. Yes, the White MC did drop an N-bomb on his Nature Sounds 2004 album, Die Rugged Man Die. Who'd have thunk the guy's racist? Yes, he was a hardcore McCain-Palin advocate in the 2008 election. He has called Obama the world's greatest used car salesman. I cannot disagree with him on that. And yes, he is one of the most underrated and well-connected underground MCs in hip-hop. So he's that guy that never got paid, never got really signed. He got signed because he knew people, but he never went anywhere. The proof can be found on his new collection, Legendary Classics Volume 1, a greatest hits disc that somehow doubles as an anthology of rarities and unreleased tracks, probably because he doesn't have any hits. Highlights include, of course, Cunt Renaissance, featuring Notorious B.I.G., who famously complimented R.A. by telling Ego Trip magazine, "I thought I was the illest." See, why didn't they quote Ego Trip magazine, not this Village Voice article? So let's see if we can find that. Ego Trip. Notorious B.I.G. Searching. Now we just don't have signal. Great. It's taking a second to load. This is ridiculous. As of December, oh, that's today's date. Ego Trip. Following B.I.G.'s death, Ego Trip ran excerpts from their conversation 2 months prior to his passing. There aren't any new revelations here, but it digs deep on Biggie's love for his son CJ and why he didn't want to rap into his 30s. Well, let's see if we can zoom this beast in. Biggie Smalls, ready to talk. The following are excerpts from conversations with Biggie Smalls from January 22nd and 23rd of 1997. In light of the media's coverage of you and the rumors that have followed you, what does it all tell you about people in general? Laughs softly to himself. I mean, they're hungry, man. They just, I guess it's a form of love because it's me. Oh, Biggie did this, let me talk about it type shit. But then again, I think if they try to big themselves up, if they know that's a hot story, they're going to speak about it. You know what I'm saying? One thing Wendy Williams did say, which was true, was if you as an artist are going to put yourself out there like that, she ain't got no choice but to speak about it because you're in the public eye. Exactly, you're in the public eye. There's two things you can be. You can be a star, you can be a superstar. Once you decide you want to be a superstar and you want to sell 2.5 million records, be on TV shows and award shows and everything, put yourself out there. But I put myself out there for straight lies. There's been things written or said about me that's completely false. What can I do? Grin and bear it. I'm not going to be one all stressed out, crying, flipping, wilding out. That's just going to make matters worse. The title of the new album, Life After Death, reflects your change in maturity and growth. Oh, your life's evolution has been much discussed, going from street life to doing the music. Did your past, blah, 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 down the block, heard that you got tall caps and you getting more money and he going to do this and this and this. You have a whole problem with that, we can handle it right then. Right then, the whole problem could be squashed instantly with this type of situation in the industry. You're like, damn, I can't do this because he's going to call the police. It'll be in every newspaper. I can't do this because they'll never play my music again. I can't do this because they won't book me for no more shows. Title of the album, sincerity. It's all real with me. First of all, it's an elevation of many things. Not only of me being smarter and wiser in what's going on, but lyrically. Tell me about your son. What does the dad want to be? You spoil her. Having a mom who was a teacher help you too. Yeah, she schooled me to a lot of shit. But at the time, I think I was more in the realm of wanting to have street smarts and wanted to know what was going on the outside. My mother was from Jamaica, so she came from a strict home. She was on her own doing her thing. Having to raise the son, she didn't really have time to school me to shit. She just left me a lot of room to roam. My curiosity all-time high. Brooklyn. Say I got $1,000 worth of clothes or $1,000 worth of jewelry. She'd ask me where the jewelry came from. Oh, it's fake. It's not real. Where the clothes come from? Blah, blah, blah. I guess for now, what's the next turn? You see yourself down the line. I want to be the one to see her and talk about, yeah, I'm going to be here 10 years from now. I don't want to be a 30-year-old rapper, man. I really don't. I want to break down my recording contract a little bit more, probably do another 2 to 3 albums. I want to be the MC to bow out gracefully. I came in the game. I gave you guys 5 or 6 decent albums. I gave you all a good 10 years of my life. I appreciate the success. I appreciate the fans for doing what they do. And I'm passing along to the next man. Y'all know what you got to do. I would still want to be involved with the music, getting the money from it, because it's basically my life. It's really all I know, but I definitely don't want to be an artist too much longer. I figured like this, I started rapping when I was 20, 21. If I ain't seen what I want in 9 years in the game, what am I in the game for? I don't want to be the rapper sitting there like, I really need this advance for my album because my mortgage is due, or my phone will get cut off if I don't get this advance. If I ain't got everything I want out of the game and being in the game for so long, obviously this is not the right game for me. After this Life After Death double CD, I got a title for my new joint. It's Born Again, because Puffy had made a good point. You don't want to be rhyming about guns and drugs forever. I really got to sit down after all this and figure out how I can. Now, that's a question about why the man died. Is that he was looking to get out of the gangster rap game? That's interesting. It's a big challenge because I always used to be on the vibe of fuck it, if that's what everybody liking, that's what I'm gonna keep doing. But then again, I could look at it another way, like, oh, that's the same old shit. I'm gonna make a transition from Big Papa to Hare Krishna. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm not gonna make that transition. I'm not gonna completely flip out. I just want to make every album like he's progressed. Nowhere in that interview does it mention R.A. the Rugged Man. Nowhere. Wow. That quote does not exist. Continuing with the Village Voice article, there's a track from Raucous Records' Sound Bombing 2 compilation in collaborations with Havoc from Mobb Deep, Kool G Rap, and Sadat X. The star attraction spends much of the record bragging about being broke, ugly, and spreading STDs to fat women, but his compassion often runs as deep as his misogyny. Consider Uncommon Valor, a Vietnam story in which he spits some 40 straight stanzas about the Vietnam odyssey of his father, a staff sergeant who was shot and infected with Agent Orange, which R.A. believes is responsible for the death of 2 of his siblings and his nephew. When I arrive at the rapper's apartment, he is just emerging from the shower, his balding head and acre of back hair still wet. The tiny studio has no furniture to speak of other than a bed plopped down exactly in the middle, surrounded by clothes and trash, with stacks of DVDs covering almost an entire wall. He puts an American flag do-rag on his head and swears everything in his rhymes is factual. As for the rumors, they're not far off either. All that stuff you heard about me, it's probably true. He raps on Classic's track, Give It Up. Have I got the AIDS virus? I probably do. Raised poor in Suffolk County, R.A., he says it's his real name but won't divulge what the initials stand for. The internet suggests Reginald Arbuckle. This has since been revealed to be like something else, but whatever. His school, meanwhile, placed him in the, quote, retarded classes, unquote, as he recalls, quote, they wrote a letter to my mother that said I must be handicapped, unquote. He says, quote, I was mainly because of behavior. During R.A.'s high school years, after his dad kicked him out of the house, he says he found himself sleeping in shopping centers and friends' homes. He also traveled to parties in outer boroughs, battle rapping anyone he could, and eventually built a cadre of up-and-coming friends. At Chungking Studios, one day in 1991, with his associates Yag Fu Front, R.A. took his boombox from room to room where people like the Track Masters and Busta Rhymes were recording, asking them if they wanted to hear the greatest MC out. He played a tape of himself performing songs about how he was the greatest MC out. All the rappers and producers were like, this kid is incredible, he remembers. Perhaps a bit incredibly, adding that labels quickly began courting him. They were flying me all over the world. I was a broke-ass, trashy white kid, and they were licking and kissing my balls. Signed to Drive for a 6-figure advance in 1992, he began doing what any 18-year-old kid from Long Island would do, riding around in limos, eating fancy soft-shell crab dinners, and taking photos of his balls and placing them around the office. Before long, female employees were complaining about him, and he was forced to take meetings with studio executives at local eateries. Along the way, he befriended another up-and-coming MC, Notorious B.I.G., and they took to playing demos for each other. "Let's make something to offend, motherfuckers," R.A. recalls proposing, whereupon Big smoked a blunt and spent an hour writing his verse for Cunt Renaissance. If you're a fan of grimy, depraved rap, you can't do much better than that track. The chorus involves vaginas and spoons, and R.A. more than holds his own, his affected, lispy flow, in contrast to the assured, methodical one he would later perfect. After his stillborn debut, Night of the Bloody Apes was shelved, at his own request, he says, and he was finally let go from Jive, he again began sleeping in the streets, occasionally pressing up 12-inch bootlegs of his Jive songs and selling them for cash. He was signed to Priority in 1998, but after the label was bought out by Capitol and his new benefactors demanded, quote, radio songs, unquote, R.A. again split. After interviewing him for Vice magazine, Devin Horowitz eventually signed him to his fledgling Nature Sounds label. And so it went that the man behind the song Every Record Label Sucks Dick was once again hitched to one. R.A. was given ownership of his masters and complete creative control. "If I want to smack my cock against the speaker for 13 songs, I could do that," he says. "I certainly wouldn't tell him how to make music," puts in Horowitz, purporting not to understand why so many studio executives were turned off by him. R.A. is one of the most forthcoming and straight-up guys I've ever met. I think he has come to realize that he can control his own destiny, be successful, and make money. R.A. says the independent recording and internet promotion have helped him find his place in the rap universe, and that he has found happiness as a result. Legendary Classics Volume 1 will be followed by a studio album next spring. In the meantime, he's working on a collaboration with Prince Paul and a book on boxing for Testify Books. He has finally secured distribution for Bad Biology, a horror comedy about a boy with a giant dick and a girl with 7 clitorises that he made with Basket Case director Frank Henenlotter. Finally, there's a biopic about his father, which in part humorously details his escape from a mental hospital 30 years ago, a scheme that apparently required him to beat down the doctors who stood in his way. The rapper concludes that he can't account for the veracity of all of his father's stories, but nonetheless insists that absolutely everything he himself raps about is true, which makes one wonder just exactly how many sexually transmitted diseases he is walking around with these days. "Everything's real, but those parts, ladies," he retorts, before pausing for a beat, "fellas, it's real." In reality, he confesses that he is sometimes not sure himself, which is just as well. Not knowing has often worked as a coping mechanism in R.A.'s life, which itself is panning out as something of a horror comedy with a happy ending. Not knowing has often worked as a coping mechanism in R.A.'s life. Chump, clown, bitch boy, wannabe. Nothing. Absolutely nothing, especially compared to someone like B.I.G. Sorry, bro. Yeah, you're not even in the same sport. That's all there is to it.